Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Long Rest. I'm Logan.
And I'm Brandon.
And today, we're going to be talking about Session 1 and beyond. Now, what does that mean?
It can mean a lot of things. You know, this video could be directed a lot more towards newer DMs, or maybe just a DM that's looking for a little better scheduled itinerary when it comes to your further on sessions. Something to help kind of like solidify what happens when you're going forward.
Kind of like setting the expectations
Yeah.
of what a game would look like. And this could be for DMs, like you said. Also could be for players. If you,
That's true, too.
If you don't even know what to expect from a long-term campaign, maybe you've never played. Maybe you've only played a one-shot. This video is going to tell you exactly what it's like to play everything beyond that session 0, that session 0.5 that we talked about in another video.
Yep.
The session 1 that we talked about in another video. We also talked about a session 0 too, so like check them all out.
Yeah.
This is for the full campaign.
Yep. This is for episode 2 to the end.
Yeah, however long
Everything.
that is.
Yeah.
So, whenever you begin session 2, really, is the first time you're going to have a recap of what happened in the last session. And truth be told, the recaps are critically important.
They are.
Not just for the DM, but also for the players, so that everyone gets back on the same page. I don't know how long it's been since you guys last played. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2, maybe it's a month, maybe it's longer. However long it is, we don't have perfect attention spans, we don't have perfect memory, so it's really nice to be able to get that recap to know what is important for this session upcoming. We've all watched TV shows, movies, whatever, and it always has that previously on before you start that episode. Tells you, not only foreshadows that next episode of what was important in the previous episodes, but it also just gets you back up to speed,
Absolutely.
right? So who does that recap come from?
Well, you have two choices. A dungeon master can do the recap, and most generally that's going to be a little bit more detailed, generally. Or on the flip side, a player can do it, and it can be rotating. It could be every single week, you know, you just go one person over and everybody does it. And the cool part about that is it gives the dungeon master a little bit more perspective on what the players are imagining happening and what they see is happening in the game. So as a dungeon master, sometimes the way you envision things as you've given it out is a little different than how players have perceived it. So with that recap coming from a player, you're able to say, oh, that's how they perceive that information or that instance. So that's interesting. I better take note of that. And I can make sure, you know, to either address it or I can put some fun stuff in here to bother them about this.
Yeah.
But it can come from either one. We've done both. I enjoy both. I do think maybe from a personal perspective, the Dungeon Master one in a bigger setting, depending on how long you've played, maybe the DM should do it if it's been a while, just to help make sure those details of information help get everybody on the same page from what happened in that previous instance, you know?
Yeah. Long story short, the DM is going to give the information that's important to the story, or what they deem as important. The players are going to give the recap of what they recall, which is going to give a huge clue to the DM of being like,
Very
maybe
much so.
I probably should have stressed this and they didn't catch it.
Right.
And sometimes you can kind of test the waters being like, man, he didn't mention this in the recap. Do you think he remembers it? So you can always kind of put little plugs of nuggets to get back on track. But regardless of whoever does the recap, once you're done with that recap, you dive into that episode.
Yes.
And who takes, like, who is the person that is setting that scene to get the game running?
Well, I think we all know, and that's the Dungeon Master.
It was a rhetorical question, truthfully.
I mean, at that point, recap's done, and the DM's going to set the scene. Whether it's
Yes.
bringing you in, figuring out where kind of everybody is, depending on the looseness of what the campaign is going on. But the DM's going to wrangle that in and get it started. He's going to give you the opportunities, you know, to put your characters into positions, you know, whether it be rhetorical or physical, or not necessarily rhetorical, but just verbally, you know, what's happening in the world around you in that moment, and he's getting those players back into momentum of like being back in the world. And then that allows the players to ultimately set up what's happening.
Yeah. I do want to add one important thing about the DM setting the scene. That is the opportunity for you to add details to the existing scene that you might have missed when you last got there. So obviously it was the end of last session of where you're picking up. So maybe there's some crucial information that you might have thought about in the time prior since playing that you want to add right then. Or maybe it's just extra information that you didn't get out then that you want to get out now to really set the scene, to let the players know where they're at in that world.
Yeah, and I've always been on the side of sometimes you have to be cautious about giving too much information out. And I actually think when you start a session is the opportune time to give out the most information. That is the greatest time to describe a scene from the sight, the smells, the hearing, to touch, to taste, whatever you can describe in senses. Like that's the moment to really help everybody dive back in and paint that.
Yeah.
So that is the one where you can give those really descriptive moments. You don't need to do it when you walk into a bar all the time or when you walk into the candy shop. Like it's now is the time, like when you can really help get the table members back into that section.
Absolutely. So then the DM has set the scene, and in the classic fashion, they've probably asked the players, what do you do? And the players are sitting there wide-eyed staring at the DM going, oh my gosh, what do we do? Right, but that is truly the time where it becomes a collaborative story. The DM is not telling you what you guys are doing anymore. This is the opportunity for the players to take the wheel, to take the initiative, to put their input into that story. And it doesn't matter which player or who does it, but somebody's got to start it off. They're going to pick back up with wherever you guys left off. And the easiest way to do that is just to start describing what your character is doing, how they're feeling, and what you're thinking. It is the most minimal amount of roleplay that you can put into the tabletop role-playing game that you've all sat down to play. Is not role-playing the character, but just voicing what the character is feeling, thinking, and doing at that moment.
In that time.
And definitely give the chance for all of the party, however big that be, to do that. To have their input, to have their spotlight, to share the spotlight, and drive the story collaboratively. And then once that gets going, we get into the actual meat and potatoes of Dungeons & Dragons as a game. And truly, there's 3 big pillars of Dungeons & Dragons. The first one, we just kind of touched on, role-playing. What's the second?
Encounters.
That's
a big one.
An encounter, I know we've talked about this in other videos, you got to check them out.
Combat is what I would break it down furthermore into.
But there's, an encounter doesn't have to just be combat, though.
Correct,
right?
No, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, the role-playing aspect, I think, kind of takes on some of the aspects of encounters.
Yeah.
So I kind of group some of those encounter options into role-playing, so then you have combat,
right?
As your second main pillar in my eyes.
Absolutely. And combat is truly the vehicle to where the dice tell the story, right? Yeah. Obviously, the dice are always going to have rolls with any checks you make, but the combat is where the bulk of the game is probably going to be spent, kind of dependent upon the player or on the table, truthfully.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have really combat-heavy tables or even combat-heavy arcs, and other times you have very roleplay heavy, or even the third pillar, which is
exploration.
Exploration is you, the characters, exploring the world the Dungeon Master has set in place. And that's where the DM does their job of letting you explore the world, but also putting that world in front of you. They're laying the groundwork for you guys to walk upon. And while you're exploring, that could be facing traps, going through puzzles, talking to NPCs, going to new cities, traveling, downtime. It's everything in between.
Yes.
And that truthfully encompasses part of roleplay as well. So it's obviously a pillar. They all support each other. But again, depending on your table, depends upon which one of these 3 pillars you lean on the most. And sometimes that's just session dependent.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times I think it becomes a unity of the three, and it just becomes where's the balance at. Every session hopefully changes, because I think it's the fun of the game, is that sometimes we're here on combat, sometimes we're here in role playing, and sometimes we're here in exploration, and it just creates a dynamic game where you get excited to come back, because it's not the same monotonous thing every time.
Yeah.
Even if you love combat, eventually after 10 sessions you're gonna be like, okay, I would like to change. Like, I would like to take a break from this.
Yeah.
I'm mentally strained, you know.
I don't know. I
from
met
this.
a guy that was literally just there to roll dice to hit things.
You know, I could see it, but I think if that's all you did every single time, I think even the best of the best would get a little tired of it, you know?
I can tell you he doesn't play anymore.
Yeah, so, hey, everybody has their likes, and there's pros and cons. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it'll always be like that. But the unity of the three pillars, you know, and that comes from the DM's perspective, as he's or she is choosing to play the game and how they are commanding and facilitating the story. And it also is very important for the players to kind of remember that too, because you make the choices of whether or not you go into combat sometimes.
Yeah.
Do I throw this fireball or not? Am I able to role play out of this, or are we going to go explore? Like, you do change those pillars.
Absolutely.
And theoretically speaking, you probably should control it more than the Dungeon Master does. A lot of times, the Dungeon Master's not retaliating, but what am I thinking of? After the fact of the player's choices, I'm going blank on a word there.
The Dungeon Master is
Facilitating
there
that
to
change.
react
To
the
Thank
player's
you.
decisions.
Such a simple word.
You were there almost.
Yeah,
You said
goodness.
retaliate. It was so close.
Yeah. Yikes.
But like leaning on the three pillars of D&D, that is where your character falls into the world. You know, that is how you become part of that world. That is how your character grows
Yes.
individually and has an arc that makes them a dynamic, interesting character. Then there's also the part where that helps the party grow together in game, but also above table. Everybody's going to have their strifes, but overall, you guys are there to have fun and enjoy each other along with the story you guys are telling. So you guys are going to grow as a party, grow as friends around the table. You guys are going to have a lot of fun. And that party dynamic is going to change. You know, session 1, you probably don't know each other. You might barely know each other. By session 30, 60, 120, whatever you get to, you guys are family. You know, you're spending more time with each other as a party than you are with whoever was in your backstory. Speaking of backstory, you gotta put that in the game.
Yeah. And
That's the role play.
Yeah, and that's what makes, I don't know if I can stress that enough. That is what makes your players come back to the table. That is what makes the world feel alive. That is what makes your choices feel like you have choices as a Dungeon Master. And as you're progressing through, when you have, say, your 4 characters, PC's backstories, you find the moments to start weaving in their backstories into the main story. And it's okay what you might have envisioned for it to be, or where that spot you thought it might be, for it not to be there. And it might be a little bit later. But let me tell you, find ways to have some little small arcs for small things, tie some backstories together, create big arcs for certain PCs, you know, that were really fitting into that campaign, because that is what ties the world to like a realism that you don't get if you don't do it. And I know that sounds kind of redundant to say, but if you don't tie backstories from your PCs, the world doesn't feel real to those guys sitting around the table. They just won't.
Yeah.
It's funny how much it changes when that availability of what I wrote on a piece of paper a year ago is now directly impacting us playing a game.
Oh, yeah.
How that makes you feel.
I think backstory arcs are so much more fun than whatever the DM has cooked up for like the main story, right? Because obviously the DM and that player kind of work together to put that backstory arc together. But those ones feel the most rewarding.
Yeah.
Because they feel like you have truly shared something with the other people at the table other than just experienced something. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it resonates with me, and that's why I like those moments the most. Whether that's my backstory or the player across from me backstory, it doesn't matter. It's still so much fun to experience that character's growth in that moment.
Yes.
And that's what I think I love the most about D&D itself is the characters' arcs. Whether that's you watching your friend across the table get to cathartically experience something themselves, or even grow as a character, or even like almost make a realization within themselves while they're role-playing and playing somebody that they are not truly, that's awesome. That's magic. That's something you could not get in most other board games, tabletop games, whatever they are. Truly, that's the magic of D&D.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, that just shared experience of growing as a character. I don't know.
That's
got
great.
lost in the sauce there, but...
And, one other point there, as a DM, when your players, I don't know many players that don't make a backstory. I know there's always like a stigma around the guy that writes like one thing on a paper. I have yet to meet him. Most of us like to write a backstory, whether it even just be a few paragraphs or a few pages. But the cool part as a DM, when you get that opportunity, and especially if you're a new DM, somebody took a whole creative justice to fill out this thing, and now you get to take your mind and then transform it into your world. So you're not starting from scratch. You're starting with a cool idea that your player really enjoyed. And you can morph it, you can change it, you can make it fit the setting, but stay true to that backstory, of course. Don't rob anything from the backstory, but you can change it, where it's necessary. And I feel like I've always felt as a DM that is where your creativity really flourishes, because you get to take what Logan made, and this backstory is so cool. And now I get to tie it in to what I made in my world, in my homebrew setting, and now I get to make that weave. And there's a certain sparkle in your eye as a DM when you sit down that night and you're going to do certain things that your players haven't yet been ready for, and it's a backstory.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm so excited for you to see this.
Selfishly, some of my favorite moments from the campaign that you just ran were with my character's backstory, because it was the most personal element to me, obviously.
Yeah.
But just having my backstory important in that moment made me feel special. Like, it truly made me feel like a rock star. Like, dang, this spotlight's on me. We've gone through this whole campaign, and like, we've worked for this. This is awesome. And getting to that experience with your friends is great. So,
the cool part about experiencing with your friends is what happens along the way. And that's leveling up. The one thing, I really put it out there for him.
You really did. You even said experience.
Because
there are two ways, multiple ways you can level up, right? But the two big ones are experience points and milestones.
Yeah.
Experience points basically come from knocking down the baddies, right? Every time you beat a monster, it has experience points based upon their CR. You add them up. If you get to that threshold, you level up. Or you can do milestone, which is, I think both of us are kind of milestone players. Like, you kind of mix them sometimes.
Yeah.
Once you get past the first few levels, I feel milestone makes the most sense. Because otherwise, what are you doing? You're just out here farming rats?
It is a slippery slope if you literally just go at it from a raw perspective. Because you could just, if you're truly being a good DM and you allowed your players just to go find a bunch of stuff and just start collecting XP and leveling up, kind of takes away the fun of the game. And at the same time, depending on the situation, when you're talking about XP only, when you get to 10 to 12, are you in the tens of thousands of XP? And
it takes forever.
Yeah, and to like throw the appropriate monsters to help like alleviate that level up. Unless you guys are planning on playing hundreds of sessions together, which would always be the goal, but it's not always realistic. It's kind of tough, and everybody kind of wants to hit. We've always fizzled out in that like level 14 to 16 range.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
It just gets combat. It just changes. The game changes as a whole in the higher level. It does get much more complicated, and if you have a decent amount of people around the table, it's a lot sometimes. And so,
pre-written modules only go up to those ranges
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, truthfully, like, Think about, I think it's like Prince of the Abyss or whatever, where you're fighting the Demogorgon, right? One of the most powerful entities in the it's not the Nine Hells.
The dimension, yeah. The whole world.
Right. The Demogorgon, regardless, like that's what you're running from, what you're fighting in that module. I don't think you get past like level 13, maybe. I can't remember quite. It's been a long time since I looked at that module, but like if you're fighting this entity, you would expect yourself to be like level 20. You know, there's plenty of modules that tow fighting gods, right?
Oh yeah. And there's a bunch of homebrew stuff that people have made for those higher level ones.
Yeah.
But it definitely takes, I mean, if you are newer, give it a little bit of time to get some experience underneath your belt. You're going to want it. Your players are going to want it, especially if you guys are all new. Get comfortable with playing, because when the amount of class features alone, plus spells, I mean, there's just a lot on your plate. When you start breaking into the 17 to 20, it definitely is super fun.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much you can do, but there's a lot more balance changes and stuff. You really have to be comfortable to move on the fly.
Yeah.
So
we've talked a lot about XP leveling.
Yeah.
We'll touch real quick on the milestone. What that looks like is, kind of think of it as like story beats.
Yeah.
When your characters have accomplished a thing, when they've got to that checkpoint where if they die, they go back to that save point, right? You know, once they hit there, that's when you level up. And I think that's the most rewarding, because it is rewarding those players not for their combat prowess, but for achieving something as a party.
yeah.
If that's defeating a big bad monster, it doesn't have to be the big bad, but it could just be a monster. Sweet. If it's talking to that one specific NPC or getting to that town, whatever it's like, that's milestone leveling, where you don't assign a designated number, like you have to kill this many rats or this many whatever cows. You know, you're not out here harvesting. You're out here.
It's not here RuneScape. You know?
Yeah, exactly. You completed a quest, essentially,
Yes.
right? That's kind of
Yeah.
what I think of it as.
Absolutely.
You can go out there and you can go kill the cows and the goblins just outside of Lumbridge, or you can go knock off all those little quests. You do the King's Quest for the chef, and next thing you know, you're leveled up.
And the cool part about Milestone is it really helps put a cap on potentially end of an arc, on the end of just in that quest moment. And so your players realize that they've accomplished something.
Yeah. It feels good.
Yeah, and like we've accomplished it, and that helps also kick off maybe whatever we're jumping into. Like it helps make that leap, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's kind of a funny thing because you wouldn't think it would, but it does.
Yeah.
There's something there that it helps bridge the gap.
It absolutely does.
Yeah. So I think that's
truly it, guys. You guys have successfully experienced session 0, session 0.5, session 1, and now beyond.
1,000 sessions.
You guys are ready to play a game. Hopefully you know what to expect. But get in the comments. Let us know if there's anything that we missed, or just share your experiences out there.
Yeah. Any advice you'd give to people continuing?
Absolutely.
All those newer players or experienced players just looking for something different. You know?
Exactly.
Hey, if you stuck around this far, maybe you like us. And you should tune in on Wednesdays to our D&D live action podcast that we do, where we play a homebrew Spelljammer. Logan DMs it, I'm your player, and we play, it's called Commander's Log. It comes out every Wednesday. And if you are still this far, you should probably stick around, next Saturday?
Oh yeah, every Saturday at noon, every Wednesday at noon, every other day at noon.
Yeah, approximately. Noon's our time, you know what I'm saying? Who doesn't like high noon? You know what I mean? Guys,
We gotta go.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Long Rest. We'll see you next weekend.
See ya.
See ya.